Welcome to part two of this two-part series, Recognizing Fake LinkedIn Profiles and Protecting Yourself Online. If you haven't watched part one, where I share how the scam unfolded and the social engineering tactics used, you'll find the link in the description below. For this second part, we'll focus on the profiles behind these scams, the warning signs they reveal, how to verify information, and the steps you can take to protect yourself. Before we begin, just a quick note. This presentation is for educational purposes only and should not be considered financial or legal advice. My goal is simply to share what happened, explain the tactics used in this type of scam, and help others recognize warning signs, verify information, and make safer decisions online. Before we look at how fake LinkedIn profiles operate, it's important to understand why these scams can be so effective. It's easy to assume that only careless or uninformed individuals fall for scams, but the reality is much different. Scammers succeed not because their targets are unintelligent or careless. They succeed because they exploit normal human traits: our ability to trust, our desire for connection, our curiosity, our optimism, and sometimes our hopes for a better future. They also take advantage of our natural human tendency called commitment. Once someone has invested time, emotion, or money into a situation, it can become harder to step back and question it. The truth is, anyone can become vulnerable under the right circumstances. Understanding that is not about blaming victims. It is about recognizing the tactics scammers use so we can better protect ourselves and others. Now that we've discussed why anyone can become vulnerable, let's take a closer look at one tactic scammers use: creating fake LinkedIn profiles to create a false sense of credibility and build trust. We'll examine how these profiles operate, the warning signs to watch for, how to verify identities, and practical steps you can take to protect yourself and others. The goal is not to assume every unfamiliar profile is fraudulent, but to help you recognize patterns, ask better questions, and make more informed decisions online. Let's start with profile verification. LinkedIn now offers identity verifications for many users. When available, a verified badge can provide an additional layer of confidence that a person is who they claim to be. Now, it's important to be fair here. A missing verification badge does not automatically mean a profile is fake. Many legitimate professionals are not verified. However, if a profile lacks verification and other warning signs are present, it may be worth taking a closer look. Next, look at the person's network. Most established professionals have visible connections, mutual contacts, endorsements, recommendations, or some evidence of an active professional presence. When a profile has very few connections or hides them entirely, that doesn't prove anything by itself, but it should raise questions. Professional networking platforms are built around relationships. If those relationships appear absent, ask yourself why. This was one of the most important lessons I learned. If something feels off about a profile, save the profile photo and perform a reverse image search. Many people know about Google Images or TinEye. I tried both. Neither found anything. At first, I assumed that meant the photo was genuine, but it wasn't. Sometimes stolen photos simply haven't been indexed in a way those tools can find. The key lesson is this: One unsuccessful search does not mean the profile is authentic. Eventually, I found results using a facial recognition search tool. But even then, the answer wasn't immediately obvious. Some of the matching images were partially blurred. Important details had been obscured. At that point, the investigation became less about the photo itself and more about the clues surrounding it: captions, usernames, website context, background details, tiny fragments of information. One clue led to another, and eventually the pieces began to fit together. Once I identified the real person, I spent time reviewing publicly available photos and videos, not because I was trying to invade anyone's privacy, but because I wanted to understand what had happened. As I became more familiar with the real person's appearance, I realized something surprising. Earlier searches had actually shown me photos of the same individual. I simply hadn't recognized them. The images were from different periods of their life. The lesson is that reverse image searching is not always straightforward. Sometimes the answer appears before you're able to recognize it. And perhaps the most important realization was this: the real person wasn't part of the scam. They were another victim, someone living their life, posting photos, building relationships, completely unaware that their identity was being used to deceive strangers. When we talk about stolen identities, it's easy to focus on the financial victim, but identity theft creates multiple victims. Let's look at some real examples. The profiles shown here all use the same photographs while presenting different names and identities. At one point, these profiles existed simultaneously. Think about that for a moment. Different people, different biographies, different professional histories, the exact same face. This is one of the clearest indicators of identity fraud. Here's another example. Again, the same photograph appears under different identities. Some of these profiles have since been removed or modified. That's one reason documenting suspicious accounts matters. Evidence that exists today may disappear tomorrow. This example may be the most striking. What you're looking at are profiles presenting themselves as entirely different individuals while using the same photograph. Different names, different backgrounds, different stories. One face, one stolen identity. When multiple identities share the same image, we are no longer dealing with coincidence. We are looking at a pattern. And here's yet another example. At this point, a pattern should begin to emerge. These aren't isolated incidents, they are repeatable methods. The specific names may change, the photos may change, but the underlying tactics remain remarkably consistent. One question I often hear is: don't these fake profiles get removed quickly? Sometimes they do, but often they don't. In my case, the profile remained active for months. The connection request sat in my inbox for months before I accepted it. Then the conversations continued for months more. That means the profile survived for at least half a year, possibly longer. The reality is that large platforms depend heavily on users reporting suspicious activity. Many fake profiles remain active far longer than people realize. Before you accept a connection request, take a moment to pause and verify who you're connecting with. A few simple precautions can help you avoid much bigger problems later. If a profile photo seems unfamiliar or suspicious, consider performing a reverse image search. While this isn't foolproof, it can sometimes reveal whether the same photo is being used elsewhere under different names. Next, verify the person's identity using multiple indicators, not just one. Look at their work history, connections, activity, recommendations, and whether the overall profile tells a consistent story. Be cautious if the conversation moves quickly away from LinkedIn or becomes unusually personal. Genuine professional networking usually develops naturally rather than quickly shifting to private conversations. Finally, trust your instincts. If something feels inconsistent, overly polished, or simply doesn't sit right, it's okay to slow down, ask questions, or decline the connection request. Remember, no single sign proves a profile is fake. It's a combination of multiple warning signs that should prompt you to take a closer look. When in doubt, slow down and take the time to verify before deciding whether to connect or not. This experience was successful not because the scammer had some extraordinary ability to deceive, but because the approach was patient, deliberate, and methodical. Trust was built over months, pressure was introduced gradually, and every step was carefully designed to feel reasonable. If there's one message I hope you take away from this presentation, it's this: you do not have to be naive to become vulnerable. You simply have to be human. If this story causes even one person to pause before accepting a connection request, question an unsolicited investment opportunity, or seek independent advice before moving money, then sharing it has been worthwhile. The discomfort you feel is data. Trust it. If you'd like to take the next step, the resources on this slide are a good place to begin. You'll find links for reverse image searching, reporting fraud, reporting suspicious online activity, and learning more about investment scams. Please feel free to take a screenshot if you'd like to save these resources for future reference. And if you found this presentation helpful, consider sharing it with others. You may reach someone who needs this information at the right time. Thank you for watching.